The wrench slipped from his hand and clanged against the hot asphalt just as the sound of tires screeching behind him cut through the still afternoon air. Armen Qureshi froze for a split second, sweat dripping from his brow, his heart suddenly pounding louder than the hum of traffic. The broken-down car in front of him wasn't even his problem. But somehow, trouble always seemed to find him when he chose to help someone else. If you believe small acts of kindness can change lives in unexpected ways, take a moment to comment, share, and subscribe to Heartfelt Stories. You never know who might need to hear something like this today. The sun hung high in the sky, casting a golden haze over the quiet roadside just outside the city. It was a kind of afternoon where everything felt heavy, heat pressing down, thoughts weighing deeper, life moving slower than usual. Armen had been driving back from a long shift at the warehouse, exhaustion sitting in his bones like a permanent guest. His hands were rough, his shirt slightly faded, and his car, an aging sedan, rattled with every bump on the road. Life hadn't been easy, but he had learned not to expect it to be. Ever since his wife passed away 3 years ago, everything had changed. Raising his 7-year-old daughter, Meher, had become both his greatest challenge and his only reason to keep going. Every morning, he packed her lunch with care, even if it was just simple bread and jam. Every night, he told her stories, even when his voice felt too tired to carry hope. He lived for her smiles, for the way she still believed the world was good, even when his own fate had been tested over and over again. That day, he could have driven past a stranded car like everyone else did. He had seen at least 5 vehicles speed by before he slowed down. A woman stood near the car, looking distressed, shielding her eyes from the sun. Her tire had clearly blown out, the rubber torn and flattened against the road. Armen hesitated at first. He was already late. Meher would be waiting at home, probably peeking out the window every few minutes. But something inside him, the quiet voice that refused to die, told him to stop. So he did. He pulled over, stepped out, and offered help without asking for anything in return. The woman looked relieved, almost surprised, like kindness was something she wasn't used to receiving from strangers. Armen didn't ask questions. He simply rolled up his sleeves and got to work. The metal of the wrench burned against his palm, but he kept going. He loosened the bolts carefully, sweat dripping down his face, his shirt sticking to his back. The road was quiet, the air thick, and for a moment, it felt like time had slowed down just for this small act. And then the sound came. A black SUV pulled up behind them, its engine low but powerful, tires crunching softly against the gravel. It wasn't the kind of vehicle you ignored. It carried presence, authority, maybe even danger. Armen glanced back briefly, a flicker of unease passing through him. But he returned to his work. He had no reason to be afraid. He was just helping someone. But the atmosphere shifted. The door of the SUV opened slowly, and a man stepped out, tall, composed, dressed in a crisp suit that seemed untouched by the heat. His expression was unreadable, his eyes fixed on Armen with an intensity that made the air feel heavier. Armen tried to ignore it. He tightened the bolts, checked the tire, and finally stood up, wiping his hands on a worn cloth. The job was done. Simple, honest, nothing more. The woman thanked him repeatedly, her voice filled with genuine gratitude. She reached into her bag, trying to offer money, but Armen shook his head gently. He didn't do this for payment. He never did. As he turned to leave, the man from the SUV spoke. His voice was calm, but it carried weight. He asked Armen why he stopped, why he helped, why he refused money. For a moment, Armen didn't know what to say. No one had ever asked him that before. He simply shrugged and said that sometimes people just needed help, and if you could give it, you should. The man studied him in silence, as if measuring something deeper than words. Then he nodded once, slowly. What Armen didn't know was at this moment, this small, ordinary act was about to change everything. Days passed, and life returned to its usual rhythm. Armen went back to work, lifting heavy crates, counting hours, stretching every rupee to make ends meet. Meher continued to fill their small home with laughter, her innocent a light in his otherwise exhausting world. But something felt different. It started subtly. A call from his supervisor. A sudden request to meet someone important. Armen thought it was a mistake at first. People like him didn't get called into offices with polished floors and glass walls. When he walked in, he saw the same man from that afternoon. The realization hit him like a wave. The man introduced himself as Rehan Malik, a businessman known for building companies from nothing. But there was something else about him. Something quieter, more personal. He explained that the woman Armen had helped was his sister. That day on the roadside hadn't just been a coincidence. It had been a test of character, though Armen had never known it. Rehan spoke about trust, about integrity, about how rare it was to find someone who would help without expecting anything in return. He said he had been watching, not just that day, but afterward, quietly, carefully, and what he saw mattered. Armen's world shifted in ways he couldn't have imagined. He was offered position, not out of pity, but out of belief. A chance to step into something bigger, something stable. It wasn't just a job. It was an opportunity to rebuild his life. At first, Armen hesitated. He wasn't used to such chances. Life had taught him to expect struggle, not breakthroughs. But when he looked at Meher, at her bright eyes, her dreams, he knew he couldn't say no. Change didn't come overnight. It never does. There were long days, new challenges, moments of doubt. But Armen worked harder than ever, driven by something deeper than survival. He was building a future now, not just enduring the present. And slowly things transformed. The small apartment turned into a modest home. Meher's school supplies became better, her dreams bigger. Armen's tired eyes began to carry something new, hope. But more than anything, he never forgot that moment on the roadside. He never forgot that kindness, even when unnoticed, had the power to echo far beyond what we can see. If this story is touching your heart so far, take a moment to engage with the video, like, comment, and share it with someone who still believes in the goodness of people. Because the truth is, the world doesn't always reward kindness immediately. Sometimes it tests you first. Sometimes it watches quietly, waiting to see if you'll still choose to do good when no one is looking. Armen could have driven past that day. He could have ignored the stranded car, focused on his own struggles, his own exhaustion. No one would have blamed him. No one would have even noticed. But he didn't. And that made all the difference. So before this story ends, here's a special request. Comment below and tell us, have you ever helped a stranger without expecting anything in return? Because stories like these aren't just meant to be watched. They're meant to be lived. As the sun set on another day, Armen sat beside Meher, listening to her talk about school, her laughter filling the room like music. For the first time in a long time, he felt something steady, something unshakable. Peace, not because life had become perfect, but because he had learned that even in the hardest moments, choosing kindness could lead you somewhere unexpected. And sometimes, just sometimes, the world finds a way to give it back.